and welcome to Mixology, where we launch every episode mixing up a beverage as we discuss how customer education and customer marketing mix together as scale engines to customer success. I'm Kristine Kukich, and for this session, Sandra Elliott is taking the role of Shannon Howard. Sandra's focus with her company, Be Learning, is the small business and how customer education can help that small business grow. In this session, we're taking a deep dive into how sales led, product led, and customer led growth braid together in the post sales experience. And we're doing it with both a non alcoholic version and an alcoholic version of a raspberry lemonade. With the non alcoholic, we're using 2 ounces of Doe's gin free non alcoholic spirit, 4 ounces of raspberry lemonade from Garden Smith Acres, both from here in the Portland area. The alcoholic version is 2 ounces of wild root Marionberry vodka, again from here in Portland, with 4 ounces of raspberry lemonade. Mix either of them together over ice, pour into your favorite glass, and let's join Sandra. We are here. Sandra, thank you for coming. I am so
I'm so glad
excited
to be
for this.
here.
This is so cool.
Um,
So we went with Doe's this time, as you saw in the map. Again, pause and go backwards if you haven't made the drink yet. But this is the non-alcoholic version of our lemonade, our raspberry lemonade, which is the Doe's gin with some of the raspberry lemonade mix that I got from a local vendor out in Sandy. So that's that part. And then I also did, of course, because I did an alcoholic version, which is using wild root vodka, Marionberry
oh,
vodka,
nice.
which is why the color on this one is deeper than the other one.
Yeah.
So, so that's what's we've got going on for the drinks. Topic wise, we are we came up when we were prepping for this last week. We talked about the concept of how sales-led growth and customer-led growth and product-led growth are really a braid, and they all work together
Mm-hmm.
to make us do whatever, as much as we do, whatever we do.
Mm-hmm.
And when Sandra and I were talking, we thought about it from that perspective. So we're really going to dive into what that means today,
It's a
right?
good one for mixology because it really is about mixing these things together in an intelligent way. And for quite a long time, customer education's been the braider of those ropes. But without that actually being recognized the way that maybe it should by organizations. So,
And I'll say that, and I'll just slip in that customer marketing falls in there too, because
oh yeah,
we
of
kind of
course.
we like operate in the shadows and get things done and really set things up with customers because we learn about them in ways
Yeah.
that other teams don't always do, right?
Marketing and education are like this for me,
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
anytime that I'm at a,
Exactly.
at a company, anytime I'm working with an organization, the very first thing I do is get a content connection with their marketing team
Mhm.
because anything that we create in short form is good marketing, right?
Exactly.
And anything that
Exactly.
marketing is creating should be reflected in our training.
There should be a direct path.
Yeah.
We should be able
Yeah,
to
yeah,
tie
yeah.
everything together pretty easily. So we get sales-led growth as the strand for relationships and that momentum that gets built at the very
Mm-hmm.
beginning. We get the product-led growth, which self-propelling in its own kind of way because the product builds on the product
Mm-hmm.
consistently over time, right? And then we get customer-led growth, which is the community and the people that we build those relationships with, building out their version of what we should look like, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
their
Mm-hmm.
comments, their input is really very important to what that growth can look like. And if we build all of those together, what happens with the barriers that we start to see, particularly post sale, but in the handoff and all the way through the examples, right? Where else are there barriers besides just the growth of silos as an organization grows over time?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to bring up. And I'll just note that I am a bottom-up processor. So I do better by giving you an example and then maybe extrapolating the reality from the example. So I'll throw an example out there and then you can extrapolate for me if you would. Um, I think like in one of my last jobs, and one of the things that I've tried to do in all of the work that I do with my clients is I have found that yes, sales, marketing, and anybody facing the customers, whether it's a UX team, whether it is information team, whether it's marketing, whether it's anything along those lines, all of those people, they have so much on their own plates that they do not have the strategic time to think about how they could fold together as well as they might want them to. And I have found that siloing creates problems for, I'm not actually telling you a story, am I? Okay, I'm going to go back and tell you a story. Last place that I worked, one of the things that we were trying to solve as customer education, as a customer education team, who's also tasked with having to inform the sales team about new features and new functionality and everything along those lines, is how do we do that? How do we make sure that our salespeople are ready for this and that we have content that is customer facing ready and is acceptable to use for customers? And trying to get the answers from all of the teams, from sales, from marketing, and from product at once, created a bottleneck that set us up for just it taking far longer than it needed to for us to create our content. And that was something that what how we resolved it is that we put together a team of people that met once a week for 15 minutes, our own little scrum team, to talk about what in the next 2 weeks can we do to combine our efforts so that we're not all three trying to do the same education in three different ways. Um, so that's
So communication,
mhm.
right, was the key to creating bridges between the silos.
Well, not just
Right?
communication. It also required just a level of innovation. Like I literally had to go to people and say, "Can we do this?" And I had to make the case for it because I'm asking, and admittedly, I'm only asking 15 minutes at a time per week, but 15 minutes at a time matters because
Does.
we're all doing 5 jobs now. So I had to make the business case for it. I had to back that business case up, and then I had to get the right people on board. Like often the managers on the other team did not know who the right people were. I had to find the right people. So it wasn't just communication.
Did you discover that the it was easier to build a more consistent narrative
Oh yes.
amongst all of that? Because one of the other parts to the siloing is we see not only different approaches to the same topic, but different priorities against all of the topics that are available.
Yeah, absolutely. We did. And what we found from that is that we were able to honestly take a step back and up, if you want to look at it that
Mhm.
way. So we realized that, the priorities that are being set by the management on the sales team and on the marketing team and on the education team. Oops, that happens every now and then. When I put my hands, I talk with my hands a lot. I haven't turned those off, but one of the things that we found is that we really couldn't influence the priorities because the priorities are really coming top down. What we could influence was the strategy. And so we were able to get into the room where people were talking about the ideal customer profile and what the customer life cycle would look like, the customer journey. When we got into the room with the customer journey people, that's when we really started seeing transformation. Because at that point, we were able to say, hey, sales needs this, but we can create that weeks in advance and they'll have videos ready for them. Right. And then those videos can act as educational components for our salespeople as well. And then,
So
things along those lines.
so it becomes a much broader a much broader product enablement strategy than just customer education or
Right.
just marketing or just any one of the just,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And customer life cycle, for the most part, I found at the time involved the salespeople, the marketing people, and the product people. right? What it didn't include was everything that people need to know why, number one, they should buy this, and two, how to get started on it.
And why these
And
things are important once you get
yeah,
started.
yeah. What, the whole, we talk about the WIFM all the time. What's in it for me? And in customer education, we know that we have to have the WIFM right up front. We're absolutely aware that people are not going to go any further if you don't have that WIFM. And that we find really moves the sales and marketing needle too, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not a customer marketer. You're the customer marketer, but the marketers, when we were able to give them 30-second videos that said, here's what's in it for you, here's why this is valuable, here's how you're going to take 2 hours of a job and turn it into 15 minutes of your job. That is really
Powerful,
useful,
right?
powerful.
Very incredibly
Yeah.
powerful around productivity and around ease of tasks, right? From one
Yeah.
task to the next.
Yeah, well, and not to mention the fact that, like, one of the things I have found in many places on the customer marketing teams and on the sales teams is that what they don't have time for is to build content, right? Of course,
Right.
marketing builds content all the time, right? And they build beautiful, polished content, often more polished than the education stuff. But what they don't have is somebody to get it started. So they have to go to the subject matter experts who often don't understand how to put it together in a way that, like, really informs in any way, or they go to one of their content creators who may not be somebody who talks to customers on a regular basis, so they don't know the pains that the customers are seeing. If you go to the customer education team, we build content all the
Mhm.
time, and we are the people that are interacting with the customers and hearing what their pain points are and what their problem points are, as well as their successes. And that's a heck of a thing to be for a customer marketer to have and for a salesperson to have.
Right.
So you see where that's braiding, right? It's
Exactly.
that
That's like
this
that's
nice
the
little
second point,
ribbon,
right? That's
that
the
nice little
second
ribbon
point.
that just threads through. And
It's the
then
the
you take it to that,
continuity.
yeah. And then you take it to that next level by looking at, the ideal customer profile and what they know and what they don't know, so that we know what we need to educate them on. And then also on the customer journey from pre-sales all the way through to support. And you figure out those places where education makes sense, to
Mhm.
not just to save time for your customers, because obviously that's super important. You want to get it in front of your customers, you want them excited, you want them buying your product. But what you can show them with customer education is we can also save you time, because customer education is the scale side of things, right?
Right.
Um, I've
And
always
then
told my, go ahead.
we'll trip on that customer marketing piece that says we will then also in those life cycles be able to identify the touch points that help us build the relationships we need for the programs that help us build our
Mm-hmm.
reputation as an organization. It's
Mm-hmm.
the places where community will serve. It's the places where advocacy is king. It's the
Mm-hmm.
places where product advisory board, customer advisory boards, executive advisory boards can play a role in building those relationships that
Mm-hmm.
solidify those different touch points and make the braids interlock stronger, I think.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. You can have these points. You can think of them as like little rubber bands on a very long braid. Each of those rubber bands is a place where about 80% of your customers need to know the same thing. And
Mhm.
sometimes that's in pre-sales. Sometimes that's in the sales cycle. Sometimes that's right after they purchase. But if you can give them, everybody, a singular experience, an experience that they can go to some other customer and go, oh yeah, I went through that. Oh yeah, I went through that. Oh yeah, I went through that. And you can take and optimize that experience for people. You can take 20-minute introductory calls off of consultants. You can take, you know, explanation calls from your support team. You can take, um, you know, the content creation part of customer marketing and give them content that they can then reduce and refine. And all of that, if you give that to them in any place where about 80% of people need to know the same thing, you are creating time for salespeople to do what they do best, for marketing people to do what they do best and for education people to do what they do best and product people
Yeah,
too. I
right.
keep
And
hitting
product
on
people,
product.
success, support, everybody gets a chance to be strong in the places where they should be and
Hmm.
not really have to worry too much about the places where they are not nearly as strong. And that's, I think, where the scale part is key,
Yeah,
right? Customer education and customer marketing are there to take away the repetitiveness
exactly.
of those other places in the organization. They
Yeah,
give an opportunity to automate, to take the 80/20 rule and build it out. We get a real opportunity to let the other teams shine at the things that they are designed best to do.
that's right. And not ask them to do things that they are not. Right? I
Right.
cannot tell you how many organizations I've walked into where salespeople or customer success people are doing the training, or even consultants are doing the training. And it's not that they're not capable, they are absolutely capable of doing that training. But is it what they were hired for?
And is
Right?
it effective use of their time?
Exactly. Exactly. Like what are we paying this consultant to do 8 hours of training versus could we take that and take it into a series of 20 videos with exercises? Would that be a better use of our time? And that's the kind of thing I think that education, customer education, and customer marketing can honestly bring to the table is we can find those places, recommend what needs to be there, work with the product or the sales or the marketing person to find out what the message needs to be and give that message in a place that gives a uniform um, interactivity or interaction across your customer base. They've all seen
And
this video,
yeah,
right?
it keeps the journey on track, right? The
Yes.
customer life cycle has all the touch points. When I talk about life cycle, I tend to use train stops because I think that's a very
Oh, yeah, that's a
apt
good one.
description,
Yeah.
right? So as you go through the different stops on the train, it's all in the same line, right? It's all the
Hmm.
red line or the yellow line or names of lines or whatever your city subway system looks like or train
Hmm.
system looks like. But the stops themselves don't all look the same because this is a stop where customer success is strongest. This is the next stop is a customer education stop. The next stop is a product stop, right? And as you go through those, the stops themselves take on the strategy and attitude of the team that is in control of that stop, but it
Yeah.
doesn't change the underlying theme or message of that train ride.
Right. And then one of the things that's super important that all brands I hear talking about is that they want a consistent user experience.
Mhm.
Where, like, if you go to Gainsight everybody's going to have the same Gainsight experience. It is not dependent upon the quality of any one individual that you're talking to
Right.
because the entire company has worked together to create that consistent quality. And I think that's honestly, like you were saying before, that's where customer marketing and education really shine.
Right, because we can help that be the one to many part of that experience is
Hmm.
where customer ed and customer marketing are the strongest.
Absolutely.
So knowing that that's the goal, that we understand that we're braiding the rope from SLG, CLG, and PLG,
Hmm.
how do we actually make change? If you had to pick three things that would lead into creating a better environment for this, what three things would those be?
Uh, I'm pondering this because I think
Yeah,
that's a worthwhile thing to say. I think the very first thing, and this is something that I see a lot of companies doing and trying to do, is that we really have to break down the barriers between these teams, between sales, marketing, product, education, and
success,
support,
support. Yeah.
right? All five of those, no matter whether you're a manufacturing company, whether you build hardware, whether you build software, whatever it is that you build, if you can get those five groups talking together about what's happening, you can make better product, you can make better marketing, you can make better sales. And those are absolutely essential to a product organization.
What do you think about the the stealth method of creating an initiative that requires input from all of those teams,
I call that sneaky training.
right?
Yes.
Because, right, it brings everyone together. And we've
Hmm.
already established that communication is really a good thing about
Hmm.
through all of this. So if we create an initiative that requires some input, and you were talking about it, I think, I don't know if it was while we were here or not, but about like your 15-minute scrum earlier on, right?
Hmm.
A 15-minute call. But that's all it takes. It's 15 minutes every 2 weeks or 15 minutes a week for the next two
Hmm.
weeks. And then we get that opportunity to not only build something together,
Yeah.
but also identify what success looks like together,
Yeah. And that's,
whether that is a KPI or some whatever measurement we have that says this is how we are going to measure success, and this is where that number resides. This is where
Mhm.
this is how it will be publicized, and this is when we know success is real.
Yep. And
And I
one of the
think
best
that
places I've found to do that is to ask people, like, is to say, can you walk me through how a customer is onboarded? And then, when they'll walk you through it, but then you say, can I sit in on one? Right. And once you sit in on one and you start asking questions, they will realize where there are breaks, where things do not, they're not, it's not a comfortable handoff. And they usually know where those comfortable handoffs, where those uncomfortable handoffs are. And a lot of times, like a marketing effort or an education effort can smooth out those rough patches. And, if you then just say, hey, you know what? We'll create this little thing for you, or we'll create a checklist for you, or we will create a little video for you, or we'll put a blog post together that you can send to them right after this to smooth that transition. It makes all the difference in the world.
And then we take that into the last part of it, which is communicate the fact that we communicated, right?
Hmm.
Let the rest of the organization, let all of the organization know that this initiative was successful or
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Even if it's not successful, I think that's just as valuable as if it were in terms of iteration and learning and all of the things that we do.
Yeah.
But making sure that everyone is aware that this was a shared initiative. All of these
Hmm.
groups participated in the success of this initiative.
Yeah. So maybe a good way to like piecemeal do that, because customer marketers and customer educators already work pretty well together. Often, as a matter of fact, I've seen people switch jobs between those two, and those, because they do, if you can get an initiative that's customer marketing and education and get it off the ground, show people that it's successful, and then ask product for their input, or then ask sales for their
Success,
input.
yep,
Yeah,
success and
like,
support. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a natural
we want to
avalanche
go a
almost.
next step up, right? We did this thing and it was really great and it pulled in this many leads and we got this far, and we got, 20% lift on this quarter's revenue based off of that, you know? And um if we can do that, if we can do something along those lines and then just invite other people to have input on what we do next, that in and of itself can break down those barriers, right?
And it does kind of work in that avalanche fashion because
Yeah.
then the more people that are involved, the snowball effect, right? It
Yep.
just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Do you
Hmm.
think there's a point at which it's too big?
Well, I haven't worked at companies, so I have deliberately for more than a decade stayed away from really big companies. So I don't want to speak to the super large industry people, but if you're talking about an organization that's 500 people or less, um, I think everything needs, you have to have somebody who can be able to incrementally show you how it's done. So it is as big as the project management capability of your company, of your organization is,
And I
right?
think that scales to enterprise too. I think that
Yeah.
that underlying philosophy is true. I think the challenges are the silos can be much farther apart
Yeah.
in
And
enterprise, and
yeah.
it's they've got much harder walls to break through. I think that and you said that you had to go find people, right?
Yeah. Like
At
it
the
took me,
enterprise level when there are 250,000 people globally, finding the right person
Mm-hmm.
is can sometimes take longer than the project itself would have taken
Yeah. If
to
I'm
get
working
off the
in
ground.
with a company with less than 100 people, it's super easy for me to find the right people, and get them there. And also, a company of that size doesn't mind if you just kind of take initiative and go. Whereas, a company of 1,000 people has a lot more in place and for good reason, right?
Right?
That scaling does
Bigger you
require
are,
some
yeah,
stringent, some guardrails.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it's too big. I just think that you have to have the right team put together for it to make that possible. And that includes excellent project management because you are working across at least two teams, usually more than that.
So we
Very.
understand that it's a rope, right? That the entire goal that we have is to support the growth, whether it's sales led, product led, or customer led, in terms of what happens with it. We understand that it's all about orchestrating and braiding the rope of those three things and all
Mm-hmm.
of the teams that support each of those braid parts of the braid for the rope,
Mm-hmm.
for the entwining parts. Then we create the projects, build the mechanisms for that communication to happen, which
Mm-hmm.
then leads to the growth that we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then we celebrate the growth across the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start all over again.
Then you do it
And
again.
it's
And
like the
with
ones that,
maybe a little bit of a bigger project. And then again, with maybe a little bit of a bigger project. And as you do that, you start to standardize the way you work with other teams so that teams become accustomed to working with one another. And it doesn't feel like somehow they're getting pulled out of their job to do something for someone else, you know?
right, right.
Yeah.
So explosions, like thoughts and ideas and the ideas that we have. Underlying theme, of course, is the fact that we need to be better all
Mm-hmm.
around at what happens throughout that customer life cycle. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been something that's been on my brain for a long time. Just this year, it's just hit the forefront. So, from my
Yeah.
perspective, we've got this. The call I did last time earlier on with Lauren, the PSA, right, our Post Sales Alliance group, and
Mm-hmm.
that's on YouTube. If you want to subscribe there, of course, you can subscribe here to Mixology. And then Sandra's website is
Be learning, BELEARNING
Center.
and yeah, dot center, not dot com. And I help smaller and medium organizations build customer education programs or strategize to build those. So that's what I do.
So thank you again, my friend,
Yay! I'm
stopping
so
by and
excited to get to
hanging
do
out with me.
this.
This is very cool. And we will see you all next time.
Bye bye.